My marriage had always been far from perfect, but I never thought it would come to this. My husband and I had been together for 10 years, and while we had our fair share of arguments and disagreements, we had always managed to work through them. But in the past few months, things have been different. My husband had become distant and aloof, spending more and more time away from home. He would come home late, claiming that he had to work overtime or attend business meetings. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but deep down, I knew something was off. Then one day I came across a text message on his phone that confirmed my suspicions. It was from a woman I had never heard of, and it was clear from their conversation that they were having an affair. I was devastated. I felt like my whole world had come crashing down around me. All those times I had trusted him, all those times I had believed his lies, they all felt like a cruel joke. I confronted him about it, and at first he denied everything. He told me that I was overreacting, that there was nothing going on. But I wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. I did some digging on my own and found out who the other woman was. I couldn't believe it. She was an acquaintance to me, but someone we had both known for years, someone who had been to our house, someone who had been a part of our lives. I was consumed by anger and betrayal. How could he do this to me, to us? How could he throw away everything we had built together for some fling? I knew I had to confront her too. I had to know the truth, and I had to make her see the damage that she had caused. That's when I found her husband's contact information. I didn't know what to expect, but I reached out to him anyway. I thought he deserved to know the truth, just like I did. Little did I know that decision would lead to even more heartbreak and pain. I arranged to meet with the other woman's husband, hoping that he would be able to provide some clarity on the situation. On the day of our meeting, I was nervous but determined. I wanted answers and I wanted them now. But when I arrived at the agreed upon location, I was shocked to see who was waiting for me. It wasn't the other woman's husband. It was my husband. At first, I couldn't believe it. Was he here to confront me, to try to explain himself, or was it just a coincidence? But as he approached me with tears in his eyes, I knew the truth. He had found out about my plan to meet with the other woman's husband, and he had come here to stop me. "I know I messed up," he said, his voice shaking. "I know I hurt you, but please don't do this. Please don't destroy everything we have left." I was stunned. My husband was standing in front of me, the man I had loved and trusted for so many years, and he was begging me not to destroy everything we had left. But how could he accuse me of that when he was the one who destroyed it all in the first place? How could he stand there and pretend like he had done nothing wrong, like it was all my fault? I felt a surge of anger and betrayal rising inside me, and before I could stop myself, I slapped him across the face. He stumbled back, his hand flying up to his cheek in shock. "How dare you?" I said, my voice trembling with rage. "How dare you accuse me of destroying everything we had left when you were the one whoring around with another woman?" Tears were streaming down my face now, and I could barely see through them. I felt like I had been hit with a ton of bricks, like the world had been turned upside down. For so long I had trusted my husband completely. I had believed that we were happy, that we were in love, and that we would be together forever. But now everything has changed. Now I couldn't even look at him without feeling sick to my stomach. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low and pleading. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." But his words fell on deaf ears. I couldn't believe anything he said anymore. All I knew was that he had broken my heart, shattered our trust, and destroyed our marriage. I turned away from him, unable to bear the sight of him any longer. Part of me wanted to run away, to escape from all of this pain and sadness. The weight of his betrayal was too heavy on my heart. As I wiped my tears, I looked up and saw someone standing in front of me. At first, I couldn't make out who it was through my blurred vision, but as I wiped my eyes, I saw that it was him, my high school sweetheart. He introduced himself as the affair partner's husband. And for a moment, I thought that my husband had made my worst nightmare come true. All of the fear, pain, and sadness that I had been feeling suddenly came flooding back, and I felt like I was drowning in it. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me, that my life had taken such a sharp turn for the worse, and then, before I could even process what was happening, I burst into tears. The sobs racked my body, and I felt like I couldn't stop them no matter how hard I tried. It was like everything that I had been holding back, all of the pain, anger, and sadness, was finally coming to the surface. And at that moment, I didn't care who saw me or what they thought. All I knew was that I was hurting and I needed someone to hold me and tell me that everything would be okay. So my high school sweetheart did just that. He wrapped his arms around me and I cried into his shoulder, feeling a sense of comfort and safety that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was like being back in high school when things were simple and easy and I didn't have to worry about the weight of the world on my shoulders. For a moment, I forgot about everything else, about the pain, the hurt, and the betrayal. All I knew was that I was in the arms of someone who cared about me, and that was enough to keep me going for a little while longer. As I stood in his embrace, I couldn't believe that I was seeing him again after all these years. Let's call him Jack. It had been so long since we had last spoken, so long since we had gone our separate ways and started new lives. But now here we were, thrown back together by circumstance and the pain of betrayal. I remembered how we had mutually parted all those years ago, both of us knowing that we needed to move on with our lives and explore new paths. But now, as I looked into his eyes, I saw something there that I hadn't seen before. A sense of longing, of regret, of what could have been. And I knew that I felt the same way. But before we could even say anything, my husband tried to remove Jack's hands from around me, but he was just pushed back by him. I couldn't believe the audacity of him, the way he had betrayed me and then tried to control me like this. So when my high school sweetheart offered to take me somewhere else, somewhere away from all of this pain and heartbreak, I nodded my head in acceptance. But my husband wasn't having any of it. He tried to refuse and pull me away from Jack. But I pushed him back, knowing that I needed to be with someone who cared about me, someone who understood the pain that I was going through. So I followed Jack, and as we walked away, I couldn't help but feel like I was leaving a part of myself behind. A part of myself that had loved my husband, that had trusted him and believed in him. But now that part of me was gone, replaced by a sense of hurt and betrayal that felt like it would never fully heal. As we drove away from the chaos of the meeting with my husband, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Being with Jack again, even in these circumstances, was like coming home. He drove me to his house, and as we pulled into the driveway, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia wash over me. I remembered all the times we had spent together here, all the memories that we had made in this house. But now everything was different. As we walked inside, Jack told me that he had kicked his wife out and that he couldn't bear to be with her after finding out about the affair. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that Jack had gone through the same thing that I had, that he had been hurt in the same way that I had been. But as he held me close and comforted me, I knew that we were in this together, that we could help each other heal and maybe even find some happiness again. As we talked and reminisced about old times, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope creeping back into my heart. I knew it was foolish at the moment, but I couldn't help it. I dated Jack throughout high school. He was perfect. He had always been a gentleman, and I always felt safe with him. The sense of safety was still there, though it felt like a nightmare unraveling in front of him in the whole cafe. He assured me that it was okay and that it was not my fault. Jack's words were a balm to my wounded soul. I couldn't believe how kind and understanding he was, even though I had just burst into his life and disrupted everything. He told me that he had been planning to file for divorce for a while now, and that his marriage to his wife had been over for a long time. But he had stayed with her because she had begged him to, which he said was a mistake. He also told me that he was meeting with his lawyer tomorrow to begin the process, and he offered to let me come with him if I wanted. I didn't know what to say. I was still in shock over everything that had happened, but I knew that I couldn't go back to my house. Not with my husband still there. So I told Jack that I would sleep on it and let him know in the morning. He offered to let me stay at his place for the night, saying that it was already late and he didn't want me to be alone. I hesitated for a moment. I didn't want to impose on him or make things even more complicated than they already were. But then I realized that I had nowhere else to go. So I accepted his offer, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. I couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity wash over me. It was like I had never left, like we were still the same teenagers we had been all those years ago. Jack showed me to the guest room and gave me a spare set of clothes to change into. As I lay down on the bed, I couldn't help but think about everything that had happened. My mind was racing and I couldn't seem to find any peace. But then Jack came into the room and sat down next to me. He took my hand in his and told me that everything was going to be okay, that he was there for me no matter what. AITA for having such feelings while still being married? Update 1, 6 months later. 6 months have passed since that devastating day at the cafe. It still feels like a fresh wound that hasn't healed yet. But Jack has been my rock through it all. He has been there for me every step of the way, helping me through the divorce process and picking up the pieces of my shattered heart. I remember the day I went with Jack to meet his divorce lawyer. It was a tough decision to make, but I knew it was the right one. Jack held my hand tightly as we walked into the lawyer's office. He knew how much this meant to me, and he wanted to show me that I wasn't alone in this. After that, I went back home and kicked my husband out. He begged and pleaded with me to give him another chance, but I knew I deserved better. When I told him that I deserved better than to be cheated on, he seemed to be taken aback. That a-hole, I told him that I had too much integrity and self-esteem to put myself through that kind of bullshit. It was tough to say those words, but it felt empowering to stand up for myself and to say no to his manipulation. The days and weeks that followed were filled with pain, anger, and sadness. But Jack was there for me every step of the way, offering a shoulder to cry on and a listening ear. He never judged me or made me feel like I was overreacting, unlike my ex. He just held me close and told me that everything was going to be okay. I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one that didn't involve my cheating ex-husband. And no, I haven't kissed or done more with Jack. He has been very respectful, and we both were going through a lot back then. I know many of you have been telling me that it's a sign to get back with Jack, and I think that now we are ready to. OP's ex-husband is a liar who will never change and deserves to be alone. Once a cheater, always a cheater. OP had confronted him before reaching out to the AP's husband, who turned out to be her high school sweetheart. He told her she was overreacting. And the universe gave him a big screw you by reconnecting her with Jack. NTA, as soon as he said, "Don't destroy everything we have left," I wanted to kick him where the sun doesn't shine. Reminds me of my manipulative ex. Divorce is the way to go. Next story. I, 31, female, am a single woman who lives alone and doesn't intend on having children of my own. I'm not wealthy, but I make enough to very comfortably support myself. I work from home and have a flexible schedule, so I have a lot of time to live how I want. I have a complicated friendship with Emma, 27, female, because I love her, but she frustrates me. Emma is a single mom with 2 children. Caleb, 7, male, and Grace, 4, female. Grace has had serious lung problems since birth and contracted RSV in October and has been hospitalized since. It's been a horrible time and she is finally more stable now, but not well. Early into Grace's hospitalization, Emma asked me to take Caleb. Emma lives with her parents who were not willing to watch him full time, so I happily took him in and temporarily converted my den into a room for him. He's a sweet kid who's been through a lot, and I'm happy to give him some quiet space. I've never taken care of a child long term before, and my life was not set up for kids, but he has adjusted well. I love cooking and collecting special ingredients to use and trying new recipes, and Caleb just rolled with it. I grow microgreens at home, and he's loved watching the process and incorporating them into his food. He hasn't liked everything, but he's always willing to try. I love painting, and we've been having craft nights where he gets to experiment with his own canvases, which he's enjoyed. We also take trips to museums and shows. I've kept up my regular life, and luckily, he was thrilled to come along. I would have struggled to come up with a more kid-specific lifestyle. Emma usually only calls weekly and sees him maybe once or twice a month, which bothers me. But the Grace situation must be draining, so I try not to hold against her. But it does mean that Emma really has no idea what we do day to day. Yesterday was Christmas, and he was going home to visit his mom. I sent him with his gifts, shoes and books, plus gifts for his mom and sister. His grandma dropped him off last night and didn't really say much to me, which was weird. Caleb looked sad and didn't want to talk about it, so I let it be and we watched a movie before bed. Late that night, I got a call from Emma screaming at me for ruining her relationship with her son. I guess it didn't go super well, and she feels that Caleb is now spoiled because of me, and that what she can provide is no longer good enough for him. He wants to make kimchi with her. He wants to get a cat. He didn't want the mac and cheese his mom made for him. When Emma gave him a new coloring book, he told her about the paintings instead and asked her to get the supplies so they could do it together when he went back home. He asked why she never takes him to museums. I was so thrown off by the screaming that I yelled back and told her I wasn't going to downgrade my life to suit her expectations. And she hung up on me. I feel guilty now. I really hadn't considered how I could be affecting Caleb's tastes long term, but I think she should have thought about that herself. She knows how I live. NTA, wow. You are a hero for taking on the added responsibility of a child for long stretches of time, and I'm assuming you are paying for the extra food, etc. I'm a bit surprised that the family didn't step up. However, I don't know the situation. They may be ill or something. You have been a wonderful friend to them, and it's a shame they can't see it. Not many people would have taken on this responsibility. In the process, you have opened the child's mind to new things such as museums, which is always great and a broadening experience for the child. If your friend is mad, they can always find somewhere else for the child to stay. And if the friend's bad behavior persists, you might insist on it. The person seems very ungrateful for what you have done. Reply to 1. In regards to her family, they're being dicks. That's it. They won't care for him because they want her to move out and stop depending on them. I understand their position in general, but this is not typical circumstances, and they're being a-holes. NaH, your friend is having a hard time now because of her daughter's health situation, but she may never be in a position to do all the stuff with Caleb that you have been doing. Caleb will understand in time that she is his mother and that the relationship you have with him is wonderful, but not that of a mother and son. In no way will I suggest to you that you lower your standards for how you treat Caleb or the activities he and you have together. In time, his mother will be grateful that you are taking so good care of her son and doing so much to make him miss her as little as possible. If that doesn't happen, then she is a ginormous a-hole. But let us give her the benefit of the doubt for now. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.